I have been prowling this site for a while now. Some of the first-hand accounts I see on here help me with my work. However, other times I can't help but think, how the hell are you still alive? But then it makes me realize that for every account that I read of someone surviving, there are usually 3 more cases where someone did die because of their stupid mistake. So I'm here to try and keep you all from being mauled, abducted, eaten, or otherwise fucked up by the things that go bump in the night. Most likely, you're all thinking, what gives this guy the right to talk down to us like he is? Well, I've been hunting these things for 29 years. Most people in my line of work don't make it to 10, much less 30. Before you ask, no, I will not be having a party. My point is that I know a hell of a lot about these things. You need to learn to stay alive if you have my job. It's not as easy as reading the old stories. And that leads into the first thing I like to address. Lore. I have an acronym for lore. Lost over recent eras. This little beauty has saved my life plenty of times. Do not expect to survive an encounter with a creature you know nothing about. And do not expect to survive an encounter with a creature using 400-year-old information. Not only is lore old information, but it's basically a giant game of telephone spanning centuries, if you millennials even know what telephone is. It's word of mouth and not to be trusted. For example, there are a myriad of differences between the European lycanthrope and the North American skinwalker. An important difference to know is that lycanthropes have no power over their transformation, while skinwalkers can transform at will when they've mastered the technique. When confronting a lycanthrope, expect it to act like a rabid beast. They are predictable, however, in the sense that they will attack almost anything. Lycanthropes are often 8 to 10 feet tall, depending on the height of the individual prior to transformation. They are heavily built and are extremely strong. Lycanthropy is a disease. The movies got that right. Europe is full of these transformative viruses. They contort the base genome of DNA. Ever heard of the Black Death? Same type of disease, just a different transformative effect. And because the disease changes the infected person's DNA, it can be passed down through family lines. Skinwalkers, however, do not transform because of a disease. They use blood magic. I hate blood magic so fucking much. Native American lore talks of shaman who dabbled in the dark arts, shape-shifting mainly. The shaman would wear the pelts of an animal of their choosing and shift into their form. Well, the lore is not entirely accurate, as usual. Skinwalkers cannot shift into animals, they blend with them. They are humanoid beast men. Most commonly, they use a canet as their animal. Why? Because it's blood magic. For the spell to work, the shaman or other idiot playing with forces they don't understand must skin the animal they want to shift into alive. Capturing and skinning a coyote or fox is far easier than skinning a bear, deer, or other creature of the forest. So guess what every dumbass thinks? That's a werewolf. Look honey, it's a werewolf. No, it isn't. Let me make things perfectly clear. Skinwalkers can still maintain their human intelligence after transformation. They are still able to reason. That means opening doors, ambushing prey with bait, evading being filmed and captured, etc. and etc. I know firsthand how dangerous a case of mistaken identity can be for an experienced hunter. I can't even begin to tell of the danger a novice hunter is in. I was working with a man named Lincoln, hunter of 8 years. I was only 12 years into my career. We had gotten a tip from a local shaman on an Indian reservation that something was wrong. He whispered of animals slaughtered and howls in the night. Now I knew what he meant immediately. Skinwalker. Nothing I hadn't seen before. My partner, on the other hand, had never heard of a skinwalker, so I had to give him a crash course. All the basics. Don't use silver. Find some monk's hood, more commonly known as a wolf's bane, and poison your crossbow, and to treat it like an intelligent human being. Well, Lincoln apparently took my advice, to the letter. He walked up to me half an hour later with a wolf's bane planned. He tore it from the ground, root and stem, without any fucking gloves. For those of you who don't know, monk's hood is very poisonous, sometimes lethal. Now, he hadn't eaten any, so he had the common sense not to ingest a toxin strong enough to knock fucking beast men on their asses. But still, he was in danger of being affected by the plant. I told Lincoln he had to sit this one out. Through skin contact, monk's hood toxin can cause heart palpitations, sweating, and disorientation. Any one of these symptoms mean that Lincoln would be easy prey for any skinwalker prowling around. He was furious. We had agreed to work together and split the reward for the wolves prowling the woods. But because of his stupid fucking mistake, he had forfeited that reward. That night, I went into the woods alone. Or I thought I did. I set up shop in a tree stand and set up camouflage and masked my scent with piss. The skinwalker's piss to be exact. I was deep in his territory and his scent was everywhere. I don't know if you've ever smelled skinwalker piss, but it's rank. Think bleach mixed with wet dog and the smell of stagnant water. The reason the smell is so strong is because the body expels toxin ingested to cause the shift. You are royally fucking your body up when you skin shift. And it is no joke. Most men break under the stress of the transformation. They go feral, and when the change is over, they are whimpering babies, unable to speak or reason. It's for this reason that most of the time, my job is over before it begins. But sometimes, a man is strong enough to survive the change. When a man becomes a beast and is still able to reason like a human, that is when skinwalkers are at their most dangerous. Well, I tracked it down to its lair, its safe space to endure the change. I set up the stand there and waited. Hours passed and eventually, I saw a bipedal creature. It seemed unsteady and exhausted. I took a look through my crossbow scope, outfitted with night vision, and swore. It was Lincoln. That fucker had tracked my fucker to his house, and the moron was knocking at his door. To his credit, he did almost everything right. He even brought the monk's hood. Unfortunately, unless distilled, it gave off an odor that a skinwalker could smell from a mile away. Now, I knew Lincoln was dead. The fucking skinwalker would have already caught the scent of that plant. No way in hell he was getting out of this. And since the activity was going on for some time, I had to assume that the skinwalker survived the initial shift. Once he chowed down on one hunter, he'd be on edge for more. So I did the only thing I could do to stay alive. I shot the prick Lincoln in the back with a wolf's bane-laced crossbow bolt. It was a clean shot, brought him down, and struck an artery I would expect. His already increased heart rate from the effects of the poison would be through the roof, spreading the toxin around. He screamed and bled, and screamed some more. That only got the fucker more stirred up. Soon, I could hear crashing through the undergrowth. The skinwalker had come to pay his respects to Lincoln. If he was screaming before, he was really screaming now. That beast had its snout in his chest before he could blink. Hell, before I could blink. When you first see one of these things, it's revolting. But as time goes on, you start to see them for the magnificent predators they are. As I was sitting there, watching that skinwalker feed on Lincoln, it was an almost cathartic thing. So I waited some more after he was done, and it started shitting. And I mean really shitting, leaving trails of it everywhere, and urinating too. It tried to run, but couldn't. The poison was already taking hold. I think halfway through the great beast shitting out chunks of Lincoln and blood, it realized that it was dying. It snarled and looked around, howling into the night sky. Then it saw me drop down from my stand. I walked over to the skinwalker and met its gaze with my own. With its eyes, it told me everything I needed to know. How he looked me over and bore into mine. It knew I was the one who outsmarted it, and it hated me for it. I put a bolt between its eyes and burned the body. Lincoln's too, or what was left of it. My family has been hunting these things for generations, and if there's one thing I've learned in almost 30 years of hunting, it's that to kill a monster, sometimes you have to be one. Now some of you might find my methods a little extreme. You'll be happy to know my wife and kids are less. Fuck it, brutal. That's what I'd use. My son Ian is in Ireland studying the Fae. My daughter Lizzie is in Europe hunting the real monsters, lycanthropes, vampires, and the like. My wife Samantha is in Asia hunting all manner of monsters. I can't even pronounce most of them, but she could. My brother is in Australia, hunting God knows what. I've emailed them the information to this account. If you have any particular questions, comment on this post. We all have our share of fucked up stories, so we can entertain you, educate you, and make our jobs easier at the same time. I'll update this tomorrow, or someone else will, with the most requested region and or monster. Have a nice day. Oh, and do us all a favor and don't go fucking with anything you don't understand. You don't want to end up like Lincoln. I'm back with my second post in my Monster-ette series, as my wife calls it. I'm back for one more post, and I'm handing the reins over to my son Ian. My wife is currently investigating suspicious reports of activity in India, which means she can't be here to write about her experiences right now. So you're all stuck with me again. Aren't you lucky? As I read through the comments, I was surprised how knowledgeable some of the people were about the things that go bump in the night. I'm almost proud to say that most of the people who have commented appear to have enough brain cells to not be a fucking Lincoln. Touching on that story, I mentioned yet another encounter with a skinwalker where I should have ended up like Lincoln. But he showed me mercy. It was my 5th year of hunting. I thought I was already a master hunter. I thought I had seen everything and had been exposed to enough fuckery to not be faced. Until I met my first skinwalker. I was trained in Europe by my grandmother, most badass granny you'll ever meet. Now she was a master, almost 50 years hunting, and it was cancer that took her, arguably one of the worst monsters she ever faced. Now grandmother was used to a more superstitious time. Nowadays we love our monster media, top 10 lists and monster movies. We fucking love it. Of course, misrepresentation of monsters in media is a dangerous thing. Do you know how many teenage girls went missing after the Twilight movies were released? Too many. Let's get one thing straight. Werewolves aren't cuddly, and vampires don't fucking glitter. Getting off topic. My point is that I thought I was tough shit. After conquering Europe, I went back home to Virginia. I thought after my training I'd be ready for whatever unholy pricks were stalking the Americas. So I took a case. Vietnam vet claiming to have seen big wolves in the woods surrounding his farm. I thought, a pack of werewolves. Simple. Pack the silver and get ready for a hell of a hunt. But then he started talking about it more. And the more he explained what was happening, the more anxious, yes, anxious, I started to get. Barn doors were opened without force, and the cattle were slaughtered. It just lifted the latch and opened the doors. Every lycanthrope I've come across in the Americas and Europe has not been able to open doors. I've seen them recognize a gun and flee. On rare occasions, a lycan is smart enough to avoid traps. Opening fucking doors? Different story. He discussed his fear that he was being tormented by teenagers in the area, but I put his fears to bed. No group of drunk kids would have killed his cattle. I left his house and entered the barn. He hadn't cleaned it up, and the stench of decay was overpowering. But underneath it all, I could smell something even more rank. Wet dog and bleach. A scent I'd eventually grow to love. There wasn't much blood within the barn. But the stalls were a different story. The cattle had been slaughtered all in the same way. Their necks were broken, and their bodies slit open after the fact. I knelt down to examine the corpses of one of the cows and looked for missing organs. Lycans love stomachs and fatty meat from the lower abdomen, but in this case, the heart was missing, and the ribcage was barely damaged. It was systematic slaughter. Each of the cows, the same. Neck broken, body opened, heart removed. Clearly, the Virginia countryside had some surprises for me. That day, when I went into the woods, I knew that I'd be meeting something I'd never seen before. And I knew that it was one fucked up monster. I set up camp deep in the forest in a clearing and settled down to wait. When the sun started to set, I positioned hanging lanterns from the trees around me and built a large fire in the center. I placed a slab of beef within my sleeping bag next to the fire and settled down in a high tree branch. Soon, night fell, and the only place that wasn't pitch black was the clearing I was lounging over. Honestly, this was a recon mission, just to see what would happen. I was not disappointed. A large, dark-furred creature jumped from the tree line to the center of the clearing, and almost gracefully ripped the beef out of the bag and flung it away into the trees. It was canine, that much I was certain of. It whirled to stare directly at the branch I was perched upon. The eyes glinted green in the light of the fire, and the snout moved and twitched. I could see the creature in startling detail, and it wasn't pretty. Upon the back, it was covered in fur, and it thickened upon the head and shoulders. The lower you go down the body, the less hair you found. Its eyes seemed to meet mine. Now I'll be honest, this is the tried and true method for hunting lichens. Set up a trap and wait for it to spring it. However, it was not the tried and true method for hunting skinwalkers. It could smell me from hundreds of yards away, and this one was intelligent enough to know what humans stank like. Still, I remained steady and calm. It knew I was there, but I would just take it down. I reached for my crossbow and hesitated. It hadn't attacked me. It was fucking ugly, but it didn't climb the tree and rip me down from my branch. If I reached for a weapon, it surely would. This was its encounter now. I was its. I did something fucking stupid. Never do what I did. Ever. I dropped out of the tree to face the skinwalker on the ground. Immediately, it lowered onto all fours, snarling. I clutched my crossbow and aimed at the skinwalker, snarling myself. We locked eyes and held our positions in that firelit clearing for what felt like an age. I had seen what this thing did to cattle. If it was the same beast, it would have no trouble taking a bolt to the chest and tearing me in two. But while I was squaring off with this thing, I saw that its eyes were not the amber of a lichen or the dead white of a wendigo. They were a gentle green and showed an emotion I knew all too well. Fear. That's when it clicked. This thing was a fucking person. I dropped my crossbow and raised my hands in surrender. I kicked it away to my right. The skinwalker slowly rose on two legs and looked me over. I was practically shitting myself. This was not what my grandma taught me. She taught me kill on sight. Well, now this monster, the thing that had me at its mercy, wasn't killing me on sight. Talk about fucking irony. "Can you understand me?" I asked cautiously. The only response was a twitch of the ear. The skinwalker suddenly snarled, and out of the darkness surrounding the clearing came a blood-curdling shriek. A smaller skinwalker, a tan blur, leapt from the trees and attacked the monster, rolling into the fire. Sparks flew and both beasts roared in pain. I rolled to the side and snatched my crossbow from the grass, trying to understand what the fuck was going on. Blood flew, and the tan monster tore at his opponent's stomach with its powerful back legs. I realized this was the beast that slaughtered the cattle. I took aim with my crossbow and fired into the heap of monster. It struck the smaller skinwalker, and it leapt away hissing. I was horrified. This thing was furious and covered in blood. It seemed to have 6 small breasts going down the chest, suggesting a female. Only now I know how rare that really is. It was a female skinwalker who used the skin, I assume, of a lynx to shift. This female was grabbed by the male and shoved headfirst into the fire. As the fur of the beast roasted, I could smell the piss evaporating off of it. I reloaded my crossbow and took another shot, striking the hind leg of the female. She howled, and the male got behind her and sunk his teeth into the back of her neck. She screamed and screamed, and her cries seemed more human the more I heard them. Eventually, there was enough pressure on the neck that with a resounding crunch, the female was still. The male fell backwards, torso and arm torn and bleeding. He looked at me, and I looked at him. I guess he assumed I was going to kill him. I'll admit, after that display, I was really fucking tempted. But I'd finished my job. Well, technically, the skinwalker had. But still, I didn't have to stay there. I turned and left the male to lick his wounds. I haven't heard anything else from that area since. Maybe one day he'll find me again, and we'll have a nice reunion. Or maybe we'll both try to kill each other. If the years have hardened him like they have me, probably the latter. Hey guys, it's Ian. Sorry for the late upload. Spirits have been noisy lately, although I'm sure you already know about my talents if my dad still mentions me as often as he does. It's been a while since I've been to the US to visit him. The Fae up here in Ireland keep me plenty busy. That's right, Fae, not fairies. Whoever decided to liken the nasties to flittering girls in short dresses really had one dreadful sense of humor. I've got the bite marks to prove it. I figure you've all got some sort of knowledge about the subject. But allow me to paint you a full picture. Let me start with where they come from, because they sure as hell, pardon my French, aren't from Neverland, or anywhere on this plane for that matter. If you've ever been to Ireland, then you've probably heard of fairy forts. Well, I have news for you. They ain't forts. They're portals, or rather interdimensional rips. And every so often, something nasty pops out to steal an infant. That's right, they have their own dimension, but seem to take great pleasure in wreaking havoc in ours. I've never been, but that's only because I value, well, pretty much everything about myself and would like it to stay intact. I also wouldn't be writing to you now if I visited the Fae in their world. You ever see Alice in Wonderland? Imagine that on acid and with more teeth, or so I've been told. Anyway, these things are twisted. They are only loyal to themselves and their court. Seelie or unseelie, it doesn't matter which a Fae is pledged to. It likely has plans to eat you. Speaking of eating, just yesterday, I was called by a woman to investigate her ex-husband's death. Apparently, he was a farmer from Tillage who was found dead after supposedly being mauled by dogs. Funny thing is, the night before his corpse was found, all the dogs in the neighborhood howled in unison for hours. If that doesn't scream barghest, I don't know what does. Through my years in Ireland, 7 to be exact, I've seen a lot. And even though I've seen the aftermath of men abducted by the Fae, I still want to make proper contact, to sit down and have a conversation with one of the courts and make it out alive. Dad tried to get me to go hunting with him. Never really took. I've always been a fellow for diplomacy. My sister is far different, but I don't want to get into her right now. Give me a good book, a grieving family, and a spirit to set free over camping in the woods, rolling in urine and tracking fecal matter any day. What my dad does is admirable, but you have a different tool for every job. He's an axe. My sister is a sledgehammer. I'm a staple. While they're off smashing things, I'm holding families together and binding souls to their resting places. Now don't get me wrong, I kill monsters just like the rest of my family, but I try to hunt monsters, not misunderstood creatures and lost souls. If you all have some questions about souls, spirits and the like, drop them in the comments. But I've been sent here to write about monsters, and I'm sure that's what you want to hear about. So let's talk about my scariest experiences in Ireland. Ireland is an ancient and powerful place. Like Native American forest spirits, the entities tied to this place are as old as the land itself, which means they don't take very kindly to visitors, especially visitors born in a land deeply entrenched by another spiritual energy. For the first 3 years after my arrival in Ireland, spirits were attracted to me. Now, I had no problem with this. I see spirits, I talk to them and help them achieve peace and forgiveness for the way they died, or for what force ended their brief walk on the mortal plane. But other things in Ireland are attracted to lost souls, things that are far older and far more dangerous than anything my father has ever faced. The Slua. Most lore you read nowadays will explain that the Slua are the lost souls of sinners, banished to wander the world in anguish forever. However, this only was written after the Christian faith became prevalent in Ireland. The truth is that the Slua are Fae too extreme for both courts. Now, when a group of Fae is too extreme for the Seelie and Unseelie court, that's when you have to be aware that they are nothing to be underestimated. The Slua are able, like most spirits and magical creatures, to change their shape. Most often, they appear as a cloud of ravens or a dark storm cloud overhead. They are always present in Ireland, and they seek lost souls to devour. Someone who goes through life not believing in an afterlife, or spirits in general, are easy to pray for the Slua. They are anguished to realize that they were wrong about their soul, and it's like a firecracker shot up into the air, spelling dinner in neon sparklers. The Slua can also kill humans still present on this plane by tearing their soul out through their eyes. It's something not mentioned in the lore, but it's one of the reasons that Slua prefer an avian form, plucking out eyes and devouring souls. Jolly old Ireland, am I right? It's not all bad though. The Slua can only attack a soul or human if they are in despair, and their souls are heavy with guilt. The Slua will also attack children, namely infants, a theme you'll find all too often with the creatures of Ireland. Saint Patrick may have scared the snakes off of Ireland, but the Fae and other uglies, he didn't even touch them. The Fae are from a different dimension. This means that holy relics from ours have no effect upon them. Boggarts, the Slua, Kelpies, Hobgoblins, they're all immune to silver, wolfsbane, and other such traditional ways of confronting monsters. Their physiology is so remarkably different than ours, and yet is so similar that it's a headache to study in detail. The Fae need to eat, like us, and they prefer meat, from us. To the Fae, human flesh is considered a delicacy. Almost universally, once the Fae get a taste of human flesh, they crave it, like a drug addict craves his next fix. However, while the Fae are magical, they can be killed. In fact, they can be struck down by traditional means. However, the Fae have so many weapons at their disposal that using a gun without the proper magical or spiritual wards is suicide. Some Fae have mind control or mind influence. The Kelpie are like this. They appear as an attractive man and lure human women down to the riverside and drag them under, devouring them. The Fae have a particular fascination with the male and female reproductive organs. The Fae, at least from what I've seen, do not have genitalia. I don't know how they breed, or if they even breed at all. I have watched Fae hunters field dress humans and have a detailed description of their techniques. If you want to read it, ask in the comments. The Fae abduct children out of their cradles. I have no idea what they do with them, but I know what they do with the ones who don't meet their needs. I've found their bones scattered around fairy forts all over Ireland. Ireland is a place deeply entrenched in magic, and for hundreds of years it was separate and isolated from other spirits and monsters. As a result, the Irish good folk are among the most horrifying and complex of all entities dwelling, well, partially, on Earth. The only advice I can give is to avoid the water and to hide and think happy thoughts when ominous clouds of birds fly towards you. Oh, and cover your eyes. That helps too. Stay safe, everyone. I'm back again. My son is busy, and my daughter is writing her post, supposedly, so I'm back with a very recent story from Canada. I was recently messaged by a young man named James. He told me that I saved his life. When I asked how he knew I was the man who saved him, he said, "You swore as much as you do on here." Can't fucking argue with that. Now this guy and his group of friends were camping in Canada. This is some classic college party type shit, everyone. Tents, red solo cups, horny 20-somethings, and Wendigo. Okay, maybe the Wendigo being there is my kind of party instead. Fuck it, here we go. Brace yourselves. And if you're squeamish when it comes to gore, don't listen. The Wendigo are nasty fuckers. I was on my way to Riding Mountain National Park in Canada. It's relatively close to the US and Canadian border, so I decided to go check it out. I had heard some reports from Connie, a park ranger and an old friend, that some hikers had gone missing. 2 men wearing blue parkas went into the park, and they never came out. Connie suspected foul play, and I hunt people as well as monsters. I decided to give her a visit. I went up and had a drink with her, and she told me that she actually suspected far worse. She was in the office when she called, so she couldn't say so out loud, but she believed it was Wendigo. I think they're nesting. I don't know how long they've been in the park, but the activity has been more recent and more common. Wendigo nest, like bees. There are those that stay to watch the hive and those that go pollinate flowers. Only, instead of pollinating flowers, they abduct unwary campers. Sometimes the Wendigo do them the mercy of eating them. Sometimes they don't. Either way, the Wendigo wins. Now, if they're nesting, then they have a steady food source and a monarch. In northern national parks like this one, Wendigo are actually a more common problem than they are made out to be. Most times, it's 1 or 2, and they kill deer, elk, or the occasional bear, and don't come into contact with humans. But there is the odd wendigo that is more ambitious, and they become monarchs. Killing and eating your own kind is a taboo in our culture, but if a wendigo can do it, it's a sign of strength. Connie had been keeping tabs on the wendigo population in the park. They were under control. But then the summer came. All the activity drove the fuckers out, and a total of 3 groups of campers have gone missing in the past 5 months. One group of 5 teenagers, the 2 hikers, and a family of 3 were all missing. They were all dead, no question. But I agreed to go anyway. I told Connie I would look for the missing campers and be careful, but I wasn't going to bother. If they were still alive, they weren't going to be for much longer. What I was going to do is find the nest and destroy it, as well as kill every last wendigo in it. Connie took me deep within the park, to the area she said the missing hikers were, and left me to search. As I walked around the deep forest, the sun started to set. But even in the dim light, I could see the telltale signs of wendigo inhabitation, pools of blood and chunks of meat. Wendigo can't digest food. They are eternally hungry. They eat, but can't process the prey, so they vomit up the remnants. Those puddles were the aftermath of a wendigo having a nice snack. I knelt down to examine the puddle and found tufts of fur and a singular yellow eye. Seems the wendigo ate a wolf. As I kept walking, I heard voices. I crept over to the source of the noise and peered from between the brush at a campsite. There was a large fire, and the scent of wheat hung in the air. Around the fire were 5 kids, 2 girls and 3 guys. They were joking and laughing like nothing was going on, even though they were deep into wendigo territory. The fire was probably the only thing keeping them at bay. These must have been the 5 missing 20-somethings. They weren't missing, not yet, just stoned out of their goddamn minds and lucky as all hell. "Hey, pass the wheat," a girl with pink hair called from across the fire. A burly guy with a beard and curly hair tossed her the bag, but the throw came up short and their prize bag landed in the fire. "Shit, water guys, save the wheat," one yelled. Another girl with piercings glinting in the firelight poured water on the pit and it was out. The one thing keeping them safe was gone, all to save some fucking wheat. "Guess your guardian angel didn't help that time, Andy," somebody said to the guy who threw the wheat. "He doesn't help with basic shit like that," Andy said. They still had no fucking clue what was about to happen. I ran out of the tree line, lit a flare, and tossed it towards the group. I covered my eyes and heard a shriek. When I looked back, I could see all 5 of the kids huddled together. And almost upon them, bathed in the red glow of my flare, was a wendigo. It still had the remnants of a parka upon its back. Guess that clears up one of the hikers then. "What the fuck? What is that?" I heard one of the girls yell. I pulled my pistol from my holster and fired 3 shots into the wendigo. The bullets burst into flame on impact, and the creatures began to scream. I plugged 2 more incendiary rounds into the wendigo's chest, and it fell back, twisting and convulsing. I got closer and pulled my knife from its holster. The tough hide was already weakened by the fire, and the creatures do best in the cold. I slammed my knife into its heart, and every muscle of the monster seemed to tighten. Then it was still. I turned and faced the kids. They seemed more scared of me than the bastard I put down. "Holy shit, Andy, I changed my mind," Pink Hair said. "I'm not an angel, just a hunter," I said, reloading my pistol. A guy with shoulder-length brown hair looked me up and down. "You don't look like a hunter, man, and you fucked that thing up like you knew how to do it. You basically have a handheld flamethrower, for Christ's sake." He pushed his glasses up on his face. "Make a new fire and stay close to it. They won't attack if you get the fire large enough," I said gruffly. "Hold up, man. You know a lot about these things, right?" the tallest amongst the group asked. He towered above them, and me. "Yes, but I don't want a group of tagalongs, especially you 5. They all stood together and met my eyes. "Like it or not, we're coming with you. We're safe with you," Pinky said. I had to chuckle at that one. Safe and my job don't mix, and if I'm not safe, they definitely aren't. Fine, but where I'm going, there's more. To be honest, I didn't take time to learn their names. James told me them after the fact. I just attributed the first thing that came to mind to the kid. Pinky was Allie, Beardy was Andy, Glasses was Mike, Tall Guy was James, and Piercings was Jess. So there I went. I gave them each a flare, and told them to light it when I told them to. I lit mine, and they stayed glued to my ass as I walked through the forest. I followed the pools of blood, visible by the moonlight reflected off of them. Eventually, we stumbled upon a cave entrance, the perfect place for a wendigo nest. I took out my crossbow and peered down the sides. The cave opened into a massive chamber, dimly lit by moonlight. We snuck in and were greeted to the stench of rotting meat. "Fuck, that's nasty," Jess whispered behind me. "Stay low and stay quiet," I whispered fiercely back. As we took cover behind some rocks, I heard crying. I looked over at the far corner of the chamber through my scope and saw a wendigo holding a man by the shoulders. Another walked up and pried his mouth open. How a human becomes a wendigo is through the consumption of human flesh, corrupted by the wendigo. They feed their human captives remnants of their kills daily. They're like really fucked up mother birds. The wendigo clamped its mouth over the man's. Soon, all that filled the cavern was the man's gurgling and his family's screams. "What the hell is happening?" James said. "The monarch is going to begin the gestation process," I said back. "Man, who the fuck are you? How are these things getting pregnant?" Andy hissed, scared. "Shut the fuck up, Beardy," I said. "Beardy?" he said behind me. "Mike, you have a beard too. Why am I Beardy?" "He called me Glasses earlier. Just go with it, I guess," Mike whispered back. I didn't even bother to tell him to be quiet. I was watching the Wendigo monarch. Killing the monarch would send the nest into anarchy. Wendigo that are turned by another Wendigo are linked. This alpha had turned a total of 4 people. I killed one, and there was another holding the man the monarch was feeding, which left 1. Fuck. I whirled around and pulled my pistol from my holster and my knife from its sheath. We were missing a Wendigo, and it was coming from outside. "Follow me. Now," I said. "What about the people they captured?" Mike said. "What about them? Save the lives you can. We can't help them, but I can help you 5. Now move it," I said. I led the group back through the tunnel, straight into the Wendigo. It snarled at me and I plucked it 4 times in the chest. I jumped back and sunk my knife deep into its heart, through the weakened hide. The Wendigo heard the shot go off. No question. I told them to run out of the cavern. They didn't need to see what I was doing. I reached into my bag and pulled out a brick of C4. I stuck it to the cave wall and stepped out into the open air. "Is that fucking C4? Who are you?" Jess yelled, throwing her hands up into the air. "Not important," I said as I went to blow up the charge, trapping the Wendigo inside. "Wait, Mike is in there," James called out. "My brother isn't out here." I sighed and ran back into the cavern, my pistol at the ready. Looking into the dim light, I saw the red glow of Mike's flare on the other side of the cavern, trying to free the prisoners. He was waving the flare from side to side, keeping the 2 Wendigo at bay. He was carrying a child in one arm, and a woman was following close behind him. "Glasses, you fucking dumbass, get over here," I roared, firing my pistol at the white, sunken figures chasing Mike. A Wendigo managed to slash Mike's ankle, and he stumbled, bleeding. He flung the flare behind him. He gave the woman her child and pushed her onward, still limping from the wound to his leg. She ran toward me and out of the cave. Mike was still hobbling on his one good leg when the fuckers got to him. They grabbed his legs and pulled them down, claws skinning the flesh below the knees. Mike screamed, and his glasses slid off his face to skid across the rough floor. The 2 Wendigo pulled Mike up and tore his stomach open. The fuckers began eating Mike while he was still alive. His screams turned into a gurgle when they tore into his throat. I turned and ran from the cave, swearing. As I left, I detonated the charge, crushing the Wendigo. I stopped and caught my breath. James approached me, and I just shook my head. We left that park with one less 20-something. He stayed to help 2 strangers, and he died so they could live. I'm not going to give you all a bullshit speech about morals. I'll just tell you now. Mike was a hero. I'm not, but he was. But if being a hero means being eaten alive by Wendigo, I'll stick to being an amoral piece of shit. And to all of the comments thanking me. If you want to thank someone, thank Mike for saving a woman and her child. And thank James for telling me to share his brother's story. I'm just doing my job. You don't thank the garbage man. And that's what I am. The supernatural garbage man.